"Shut up, Mom. Nobody cares about your ancient nonsense." The words cut across the dinner table like a blade. My fork froze mid-air. A piece of chicken trembled on it. Across from me, Ethan, my grandson, stared down at his mashed potatoes. Julia's husband snorted into his wine glass. And just like that, I was erased. I'd been telling a story about her father, about the time he forgot her birthday cake and came home with a watermelon. The kind of story that once made her laugh until she cried. But not tonight. Tonight, she cut me down like a senile old woman who'd overstayed her welcome. Her husband chuckled again, not even trying to hide it. The children knew. Their faces flushed, eyes locked on their plates. They felt the wrongness in the air. But no one looked at me. No one defended me. So I smiled. I made myself small. I swallowed the burn behind my eyes. I sat through the rest of that dinner like a ghost, nodding, smiling, helping with dishes, because I didn't want to cause a scene, because I still wanted to believe it was just a bad moment, not a revelation. But deep down, something cracked. That was the last meal I ever had at my daughter's table. "Shut up, Mom." That's what she said. And what she meant was, "You're done. We've moved on." The next morning, I told myself she was just stressed. Bills, the kids, her useless husband. Maybe I was being dramatic, sensitive. Still in my coat from last night, I stared at a cold mug of untouched coffee. The silence of my house was deafening. Her voice replayed in my head, sharp, impatient, like I was some babbling stranger on the bus. She used to beg me for that story. Now it was ancient nonsense. I pressed my hands to my face. My skin felt paper thin, ready to crumble. "She didn't mean it," I whispered. "She's just tired." But then I remembered her eyes. No regret, no softness, just irritation, like I was a burden, a sound to be tolerated. She barely touched her plate. She didn't say goodbye. Her husband never looked at me once. Was I imagining it? Reading too much into a moment? I reached for my phone. Her name glowed on the screen. Julia, home. The photo was old. Her holding her youngest, smiling, sending me updates, selfies, love. My thumb hovered over the call button. I didn't press it, because here's the truth. I'd been explaining her behavior away for years. Busy, pressured, didn't mean it like that. But last night wasn't a slip. It wasn't a one-off. It was the culmination. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. I wasn't her mother anymore. Not in the way that mattered. I was someone she endured, expected to stay quiet, to show up with food, to keep the past to myself. Still, the guilt twisted in me, because what kind of mother even questions her own child? What kind of mother wonders if the baby she raised doesn't love her anymore? I closed my phone and sat there in silence, too afraid to cry, too ashamed to admit the truth. She didn't snap because she was tired. She didn't snap because she was overwhelmed. She snapped because somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing me as a person. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching the light shift through the blinds. My mind wouldn't quiet down. It just kept circling back, dragging up years I hadn't thought about in ages. I remembered the winter she got pneumonia. She was 7. We were living in that little apartment above the pharmacy, the one with the broken heater that wheezed like an old man. She slept curled against me, her forehead burning, her breath rasping in the dark. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. I just held her and whispered, "I've got you. You're safe." I remembered sewing her Easter dress by hand because I couldn't afford the one she wanted. I stayed up past 2 a.m., threading pearls around the neckline because she said it looked princessy. She twirled through the church aisle that Sunday, her head high, beaming. And I thought, this is worth it. Every blister, every extra shift, all of it. I remembered when that boy Aaron broke her heart in high school. She sobbed into my lap and whispered, "You're the only person who loves me for real, Mom." That same girl just told me to shut up at her table. She didn't flinch. She didn't care that the children were watching. And that's what gutted me. Not the insult, not even the silence that followed, but how easy it was for her. Like the years I broke my back to keep her warm and fed didn't matter. Like the sacrifices were just background scenery. I worked 2 jobs so she could go to college. I went without vacations, without new clothes, sometimes even without heat in the winter. Also, she wouldn't feel less than the other kids. I told myself it was love. That's what mothers do. We give, and give, and give. But sitting alone in that cold kitchen, the coffee untouched, the silence stretching like a punishment, I asked myself something I had never dared to before. What if she never saw any of it? What if all those years, all that giving, just taught her to take? And what if I made her that way? The house was quiet that morning, too quiet. The kind of quiet that lets every memory echo louder than it should. I walked from room to room, just trying to breathe. But everywhere I looked, I saw her. Not grown-up Julia, not the woman who silenced me, the little girl I had built this world around. On the bookshelf, her dance trophies, tiny gold figurines, chipped from falls, but still standing. On the second shelf, her valedictorian certificate, the one I helped her write when her hands shook too much to finish. She never thanked me. I never expected her to. But now I wonder if she even remembers. In the closet, her wedding dress, sealed in a garment bag, airtight, untouched. Along the hem, tiny embroidered roses. 3 months I spent learning, pricking my fingers raw, bleeding into the fabric. She said it made the dress feel one of a kind. I said, "You are." After the wedding, I had it cleaned and preserved. She never came to pick it up. And then there was the quilt, folded neatly at the edge of the guest bed. A patchwork of her baby clothes. I made it when her first child was born. She never used it, said it was too sentimental. I sat on the bed, smoothing the fabric with shaking hands. What was all this, if not proof of love, of devotion, of a life lived in service to her? I didn't have much, not money, not fame, not even many friends anymore. But I had this house, and I filled it with proof. Proof of who I was, proof of what I gave, proof of how much I loved her. And she left it all behind. I thought these things would anchor her back to me someday. Instead, they've become a museum of a mother who no longer fits into her daughter's life, a shrine no one visits, a story no one wants to hear. Just ancient nonsense. Looking back, I realized the insult wasn't sudden. It was just the first time she said it out loud. The truth is, the signs were there. Sunday dinners had been changing, slowly, like rot beneath floorboards. At first, it was small things. The way she rolled her eyes when I asked her to pass the salt. The way her husband snickered when I repeated a story. How they'd cut me off mid-sentence to talk about some Netflix show I'd never heard of. And every time I stumbled over a name or forgot a headline from the news, they'd exchange that look, like I was fading. At first, I laughed it off. "I'm just getting old," I'd say, chuckling, trying to play along, trying to stay included. But the laughter never reached their eyes. And eventually, I stopped talking so much. I told myself I was being considerate, giving the younger ones space. But what I was really doing was shrinking, quietly, without meaning to. I was making myself small. One Sunday, I brought my lemon bars, the ones Julia used to beg for every summer. She barely glanced at them, said they were too sweet now, and pushed the plate away. Another time, I told the story of when she fell asleep in her father's toolbox, curled up like a kitten. Her husband interrupted with a fake snore. "Here we go again," he said. Everyone laughed, even her. No one told them to stop, not even Julia. And every week it chipped away at me. But last Sunday, that wasn't a chip, that was a hammer. A clean break. After dinner, I helped with the dishes. Her husband dried the plates beside me. He said, smirking, "You really shouldn't take things so personal. It's just how people joke." I didn't reply. I just kept scrubbing the pan. Because if I opened my mouth, I would have screamed. But inside, something solidified. This wasn't miscommunication. It wasn't just a joke. It was disrespect. Disrespect that grew in comfort, fed by my silence, and now, full grown, living in my daughter's home, like it belonged there. And maybe it did, because I had let it. I didn't drive home right away. After the dishes were done, after the goodbyes, mumbled without eye contact, I stepped out the front door and kept walking. Past my car, down the block, around the corner. The night was cold, but I didn't feel it. Not until an hour later, sitting in my car with the engine off, my hands gripping the wheel until my knuckles went white. Her house was still in my rearview mirror. Warm lights glowing in the windows, shadows moving inside. Her life, her family, the world I was once the center of. Now I was parked outside like a stranger. I sat in that silence, staring at the porch light that used to mean home, and a sentence broke out of me, soft but certain. She doesn't see me as her mother anymore, only as furniture. That's what I'd become, a fixture, a background extra in her curated family life, useful, quiet, invisible, unless I disrupted the mood. I buried my face in my hands and let the sob come, the kind that starts silent, shoulders shaking, breath stolen. Then the sound followed, ugly, raw. It had been years since I cried like that, not since my husband died, not since I folded his last sweater and tucked it into the donation box, my hands trembling. But this was worse, because death doesn't choose. But rejection? That's personal, that's deliberate. I cried until my throat burned, until the windows fogged with my breath, and when I looked up again, the house was still there, still glowing, still full of people who hadn't noticed I hadn't come back in. Not even Julia. I could have driven off a cliff, and she wouldn't have called. She probably didn't even realize I was still parked outside. I wiped my face on my sleeve, and in that moment, I understood what had been building for years. I was waiting for her to love me again, waiting for her to notice me, to thank me, to see me. But she didn't need my love anymore. She just needed me useful. She just needed me silent. And I wasn't sure which of those things hurt more. Back home, I walked straight to the den and pulled down the old photo album, the one with the green corduroy cover, the one with peeling corners. I hadn't opened it since the funeral. I sat on the floor, right in front of the bookshelf, and turned the pages, and there she was, Julia at 5, pigtails, overalls, clutching her teddy bear like it held the whole world together. I could still hear her tiny voice. "Mama, don't let the monsters get me." And I'd whisper back, "They'll have to go through me first." That little girl was everything to me. And somewhere along the way, she turned into a woman who barely tolerated my voice. But still, wasn't I the adult here? Wasn't I the mother? Wasn't it my job to forgive? I pressed my hand against the plastic sheet, the photo beneath it, Julia asleep on my chest in a hospital chair, post-appendectomy. Maybe 7 years old. My heart twisted like a rag wrung dry. And then came the guilt voice. The voice passed down by generations of women before me. Maybe you were too hard on her. Maybe she's going through something. Maybe she doesn't know how much she's hurting you. I had answers to all of it. But none of them made the ache go away. I looked around the room. The blanket draped over the armchair? I knitted it the year her father died, just to keep my hands from shaking. The cuckoo clock above the fireplace? She made that in Girl Scouts. It hadn't worked in years, but I never took it down. Every object here was a shrine to my role as her mother. So who was I without that? Who was I if I stopped trying to win her affection? If I pulled back, if I let the silence stretch long enough for her to feel it, would she even notice? Would she miss me? Or would she just be relieved? I closed the album and pressed it to my chest. I felt old, not in years, but in disappointment. In wear, in erosion. I whispered to the quiet room, if I wasn't her mother, I don't know who I'd be. And the terrible truth was, maybe she'd already decided for me. The next morning, something shifted. It wasn't rage, not yet. It was quieter than that. Like finding a stone in your shoe you'd been limping on for years, and finally stopping to pull it out. I was rinsing a teacup when I glanced at the folder on the counter. The one from the credit union, that's when it came back to me. The house Julia lived in? Mine. She liked to say she bought it from me, but she never signed a mortgage. I let her move in after her second miscarriage, when her marriage was wobbling and her smile had disappeared. Stay as long as you need, I told her. Heal. She never left. I never asked for rent. The car she drives, that pearl white SUV, still in my name. I paid the registration. I covered the insurance, every oil change billed to my card. And the savings account? Every overdraft emergency in the last 10 years, I covered it. I even paid off a hospital bill she never told her husband about. She cried when I did it, said, "You're my safety net, Mom." But I wasn't her safety net anymore. Now I was just nuisance noise. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the drawer. Bank statements, title transfers, copies of her car note, the property deed, tax records, all of it. In my name. She thought I belonged to her, like some aging appliance in the corner. But the truth, she belonged to me.